Frontlines is Turning Point's on-the-ground news reporting, probably the best in the business. We have this clip from Savannah Hernandez, who was just joining us and will rejoin us again. But first, watch this package from Savannah Hernandez about harm reduction and whether or not it works.
This is Savannah Hernandez in Austin, Texas, standing in front of the Texas Harm Reduction Alliance. Now, this is one of the places in Austin that is handing out free needles and free glass pipes to drug users across the city. And to be quite honest with you guys, so many people kept telling me that Austin's homeless and drug crisis was comparable to San Francisco or even Portland, and I thought that was crazy until I started touring some of these homeless encampments, and there were exposed, dirty needles everywhere. Now, after touring these encampments, of course, I wanted to know where all of these needles were coming from, and very similar to Portland and San Francisco, this organization is handing out free needles, free pipes. They even gave me 4 different kinds, depending on which type of drug use, I was interested in. They also, again, are handing out Narcan, condoms, even the cookers and the rubbers that anybody needs to use for proper drug use. These are very similar to the programs that have completely destroyed San Francisco, and I was truly shocked to see this here in Austin, Texas. Now, this area labels itself a safe space for drug users, and when I came to this location to pick up this harm reduction kit, there were so many people outside of this area that were strung out on drugs. One of the first things that I experienced in walking in was a man who was screaming about how his wife was gang raped and then forced into an abortion. The staffers were kind of just listening to him talk and then laughed him off. They took me to the back and they gave me this big bag of supplies. And once I was inside, there were so many signs on the walls reading, "Hey, you can use drugs in the bathroom, just make sure to tell somebody," and basically encouraging drug use. Now, not only that, but a woman was sitting on a couch and her dog apparently had gotten into her drug supply, so the dog was freaking out. It was just a very chaotic environment, and this is right next to other small businesses, by the way, and we're also about a half a mile away from a church. So I just wanted to give you guys an example of some of the organizations that are here in Austin. I was truly shocked to see this. This isn't the only one, by the way. There's another one called Vivint Health LifePoint. They offer similar services. I am just genuinely floored that the drug crisis in this city has gotten this bad. I mean, I was even sitting at a stoplight. I'm here to do a documentary on the homeless crisis, and as I'm sitting, a homeless woman comes and picks up what looks like a weapon off of the ground, is threatening somebody and screaming at somebody, and I'm just there at the stoplight with other drivers. She then is starting to scream and point the weapon at us. We can't go anywhere, we're just stuck, and this type of story is very common in Austin. So I just wanted to come highlight the various programs that are being allowed to prosper here. Free needles, free Narcan, free cookers. It's just disappointing because I have seen how these exact same programs have completely destroyed San Francisco. I've spoken to other addicts as well who even say that these programs have destroyed their cities and only enable drug addiction, and even the homeless agree.
Wow, that is depressing and interesting and horrifying all at the same time. Savannah Hernandez continues to join us. Sav, I actually have when I was watching that, you got a bunch of that sort of drug paraphernalia, which I guess I kind of want to clarify. Did you go into those facilities and they just gave it to you? Is that what happened?
Yes, that is exactly what happened. They even asked me specifically if I wanted a certain needle size.
Holy cow.
And again, this is happening in Texas, right? Typically, I would report on this exact type of thing, and I have reported on it in San Francisco, in Philadelphia, in Seattle, in Portland, but this is even happening in Texas. And like I said in that report, I was truly shocked because I know that our homeless crisis has gotten bad. I mean, it's kind of cleaned up right now even, but people were comparing it to a lot of these West Coast cities that have completely degraded, in which you might be walking around at 4 p.m. downtown and you'll see a drug overdose. This is something I actually experienced while reporting in Portland. And Texas is really starting to look like that now. So it's pretty crazy and shocking, truly.
So here's the thing that I'm wondering about. If you're walking in there, you're a well put together individual. You don't look like a drug addict. There was nobody there that said, "Hey, you actually might look like you have your life together. Maybe you shouldn't ruin it with meth." They just gave it. There was no intervention whatsoever. Or did anybody say like, "Hey, there are other options. What was that experience like?
Well, again, Joe Bob, with all of these programs, and that's why so many various activists and locals in areas where these are offered speak out against them because there's never any offer for, hey, let's get you to a rehab, let's get you help, let's get you off drugs. Like I said, you walk into this area and there are multiple signs encouraging drug use. I mean, they even had signs that were like, even Jesus drank wine. No matter what your use
Jeez.
is, it's okay. We accept you. This is a safe space. And this has been a huge problem. For example, when I went into one of these centers in San Francisco, again, they are handing, and in San Francisco, they hand you a big cardboard box of 100 needles, and they give you two big bags of supplies, and they don't give you any resources for rehab, for again, getting off of drugs. And I've spoken to former addicts themselves who say this is only exacerbating the problem, obviously, because when drug addicts know that they have access to paraphernalia, to drugs, when they know that they're not going to be arrested or face any consequence, it only makes the problem 10 times worse. And these programs are always called harm reduction, but I would venture to say, that they're causing more harm because if you go and walk down the public trails in Texas now, Joe Bob, there are exposed needles everywhere. I mean, children could potentially be picking these up. And like I said, this is a half mile away from a church. So it attracts a lot of drug users. I was uncomfortable walking in the area, but I was like, okay, I got to go for my report. But imagine being a tourist in Texas or, San Francisco, Philadelphia, Seattle, Portland. You're walking along the street, you're seeing exposed needles, you're seeing drug addiction. So in some cases, I've seen drug users that are just slouched over, a needle still in their arm. I mean, this is a really huge problem that we need to get under control in this country. And the fact that it's happening in Texas just goes to show that we truly have no cities that are off limits or safe.
Yeah, and it's wild. So you mentioned harm reduction, right? That is the floofy word that I think
Yeah,
people just kind of in general like, oh yeah, I'm for harm reduction, but clearly
exactly.
that's not what it's happening. And the reason they use that language is in order to push stuff that nobody actually would vote for. And so I'm curious, is there any other language kind of being used in a way to mislead people about these sorts of programs? Because I would imagine like I just don't believe that if a person understood what was happening, that they would say, yes, this is a good idea. We should continue it. Let's vote for more of these sorts of things. Are they manipulating the language in any other way other than the harm reduction?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, again, they talk about a safe space or they talk about
Mm.
safe drug use. And this is the manipulation tactic that a lot of these programs use, where they're like, well, drug users are going to use. So we just want to make sure that we're stopping overdoses and that people are using safely, which then leads to programs like we're seeing up in Canada, where the government up there will literally give you fentanyl. If you want meth, fentanyl, crack, take your pick and the government will give it to you and they'll give you a safe space to do it. But then, of course, that leads to a huge issue with drugs. So again, I think that that's another one of the very manipulative and sinister things that are said is safe drug use, safe space, harm reduction. It's insane, Joe Bob. And anybody with common sense can see that these are bad programs. And that's why I've really tried to hone in on these. And I've been reporting on these programs for years because they're very dangerous. They attract a lot of mentally unstable people. I've been attacked outside of a harm reduction center myself when I was in Philadelphia because these people are strung out on drugs. And it is so it's so sinister not to help these people, but to instead enable their addictions and allow them to be slaves to their addiction and give them no actual help.
Yeah, well, all of this just goes to show how important this stuff is to be covered. And glad that you and Frontlines are taking the front lines approach in helping people become more aware of the fact that, hey, these things called harm reduction or safe spaces are really, really terrible for all of the people that find themselves sucked into a lifestyle that is not going to have a beneficial outcome. Savannah Hernandez, Frontlines reporter and Turning Point contributor, thanks so much for joining us. And thanks for doing all the stuff that you're doing. This is, again, dangerous, interesting, and necessary all at the same time.
Thanks, Joe Bob. Appreciate you.